Hi, Gareth.
Right, how are you, gentlemen?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Gareth. What a privilege it is to have you.
Delighted, delighted. How are things?
Trudy, how are you, Trudy?
Good, thanks, Jack. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And Tom?
Hey, Jack.
Just to note, Jack, your video isn't on. Is that intentional?
Not really, no, and it would probably spoil the whole thing.
Okay, that's the answer. I'm thinking.
I was very impressed, Gareth.
I haven't worn it. I haven't worn one for months. But I was on a conference similar to this about 2 weeks ago, and I suddenly appeared the olive ties. I said, well, it's easier to take one off than put one on. So,
but we have to have an adult in the room as well now, Gareth.
We'll let you be that.
Thanks, Gareth. Well, you look great anyway.
Yeah, likewise.
With or without a tie. Thank you very much for joining us, John.
John, you are muted there.
The age-old apologies. Yeah, no, thanks, Jack.
Marika, you ready?
Yes, of course. And let me share my screen.
Please, thank you very much. So Marika is from the Malta Business Bureau, who are the leaders in the DIFME project, and she's going to give us an introduction and a short video on the project and its development. So thank you very much, Marika.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my screen here? I'm not hearing anyone, but you're hearing me, right? Okay.
Yeah, perfect, Marika. Yeah, we're all hearing you fine.
Thank you very much. My name is Marika Huber. I am the project manager for DIFME. DIFME is an EU-funded project which kicked off way back in February 2019. The idea of DIFME is to bring businesses and universities together to ensure that we can coach and help entrepreneurs in the business world as it is, related to financial literacy and to digitalize internationally. I have a short project PowerPoint here, just to give you an idea of what the project's all about. The DIFME aims to facilitate the flow and co-creation of the learning duos based on 5 educational partners and 6 business partners from 7 countries, and integrating the necessary skills in a curriculum adapted to the real needs of the entrepreneurs. Really and truly, when we were putting this curriculum together, we kept on as partners checking on each other to ensure that it's not too academic and it's pretty straightforward to the real needs of the micro and entrepreneurs. The material has been developed on an assessment-based method. We had 450 entrepreneurs, which we interviewed, and also a number of academics as well. We had more than 20 experts across the 7 countries. And what we did was we consolidated our modules and our units as a university and a business partner working together. So we had one business partner working on the materials and a university partner to ensure that there's a bit of academic, but not too much of it. So as a project, our entrepreneurs can log in and follow it alone. There are 9 modules with the theory, and there is a level of practicality to them as well. There are exercises to check what they have learned and quizzes to test the knowledge. We also have a number of workshops and piloting happening in the 7 countries, Malta, Bulgaria, Ireland, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, and Greece. And the idea is to bring closer contact between the universities and the entrepreneurs as well. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we have had to resort to a lot of online piloting. So it was pretty difficult to do on a face-to-face level. Our partners. So as I mentioned, we have a number of universities. We have the University of West Attica, which is based in Piraeus in Greece. We have University of National and World Economy, which is based in Bulgaria. TUD, based in Dublin, Ireland. the University of Malta, and a German university as well. Our business partners are Malta Business Bureau, EDEC, which is based in Piraeus in Greece, Incubator Leeuwarden, based in northern part of the Netherlands, ESOP in Germany, Regensburg to be exact, Organised, doLearnFinance, and Eurocrea Merchant, which is based in Milan in Italy. So what were our indicators and milestones we achieved, where we started off with our survey, which targeted 350 entrepreneurs, and we had a response of around 470. We had the universities, which researched what curriculum is available and trying to see what was actually already there and what we could add on and what was not available. Partners each prepared their own country reports, so we assessed our entrepreneurs within each country, and then we had a synthesis report which was prepared by the University of Malta, and that's how we came to our learning model. All the modules have been translated, so all in all we have Italian, Greek, and German. So the pilot testing activities are organized after all these have been addressed. And we have the toolkit, which has been uploaded. At the end of the project, all the partners will be signing an MOC, because the intention is to continue this project over a number of years. So it won't stop there. The partners intend to work together and build a curriculum for our entrepreneurs. So that's it all in all. I have a short video to show you.
Digital internationalization and financial literacy skills for micro-entrepreneurs is an EU-funded project created by 5 EU universities and 6 EU business partners. DIFME is available in 6 languages: English, Italian, Bulgarian, German, Greek, and Dutch. DIFME is based on the feedback of over 450 micro-entrepreneurs to develop learning tools related to financial literacy and digital skills, and is free to anyone who wants to be more entrepreneurial. You may already be in business and interested in acquiring further knowledge. You may be a student interested in making a career from your talents, or maybe you have a number of ideas but are unsure about how to implement them. The DIFME online self-paced course is delivered on demand, meaning that you can access the course at any time. It includes descriptive PowerPoints, informative articles, quizzes, and external links for you to make responsible financial choices and to understand digital techniques readily available to boost your enterprise internationally. You can also refer to the SME Hub, an open repository source of solution, and you can also keep track of your success. At the end of the coursework, your input is acknowledged with a certificate. DIFME is divided into 9 training modules. Modules 1 to 4 are specifically focused on building your understanding of financial literacy. Module 1, Introduction to Business. Module 1 is built around analyzing your organization's macro and micro environment. It will equip you to adapt to changing environments, help you recognize opportunities, and develop competitive advantages. Module 2, Financing the Business. Module 2 will help understand financial calculations and concepts that you will need to communicate with to your lenders and investors. Module 3, Sustaining the Business. Module 3 uses realistic business simulations to help you fine-tune your business and deliver the best sustainable plan. Module 4, Registration, Taxes, and Other Legal Requirements. Module 4 will give you an overall insight into general business types, their legal, fiscal, and financial implications, and how to protect your business trademark and copyright. Module 5 to 9 are focused on building your confidence in digital tools and digital strategy. Module 5, Cybersecurity. Module 5 will ensure you minimize the risks of doing business online and protect your information while staying connected. Module 6, Digital Marketing. Module 6 acknowledges how technology has significantly changed marketing online through mobile phones and other digital mediums. Module 7, Digital Transformation and Strategy. Module 7 will guide you through digital concepts appropriate for your individual business and built to your specific needs. Module 8, Managing Relationships with Customers Online. Module 8 should help you understand the importance, processes, and channels of customer relation management. Module 9, Business Intelligence. Module 9 will introduce techniques and concepts linked to business intelligence systems and explains how to use your data to turn it into actionable information. Find out more and participate in DIFME for free. www.difme.eu.
Okay, that's it. So, Damien, I don't know if you already pointed out that you yourselves are piloting the project, and if there are any entities that wish to participate in the project. Most of the piloting is happening online. I'm aware that you're working jointly with TUD as well on this.
Thanks, Marika. Thanks for setting the scene for us there. I think if any micro-entrepreneur in Europe were to follow all of the modules of the program, they would give them a far greater chance of succeeding. There's some fantastic material in there. There's one more short video that we're just going to share with you now, which brings us to our theme today on doing the financials and why you need to and what you need to know to do them. So I'm just going to share my screen here. We're going to run through a short video, 3 to 4 minutes, bringing in some of our presenters, and then we'll have a discussion on their experience and how it can be applied to the experience of micro-entrepreneurs beginning with their business and through DIFME.
Hi, I'm John Phelan, the All-Ireland Director of HBAN, the Hail Business Angel Network in Ireland. The question I've been asked is, what do entrepreneurs seeking funding need to know about the financial aspects of business and why? Probably the easiest way to explain that is to my own experience, which was that the first company I set up in London. It was a business that the only piece I knew that I had to do was have enough money in the bank at the end of the month to pay everybody. And that worked well. The company did well initially. But what I didn't understand was the pricing, or how to price what I was doing, or how to conserve cash. Why you would need to conserve cash and how you would have to have cash in the balance sheet to allow for future growth. And if you share the cash all up front, you have nothing in reserves. What it also didn't help me with was to understand, not having a financial picture, to help me understand how to look at the macro world and what was going on in the world. And I missed a market, a shift in the market through technology, which fundamentally I ended up having to close down the business because of it. We didn't have enough cash in reserve to help us evolve and transform to where the technology was moving, and that killed us. From that, I went back to college and did an MBA, and I had 2 specific reasons I wanted to do that. So one was to understand how to assess and put a framework on assessing where future markets were going. I wanted to be a leader in those markets and not a follower, or at least be at the forefront to be able to dictate where I wanted to be rather than just following everybody else, which is what happened in my first business. So that was a big learning for me. But the second part that I really wanted to understand was financials, and not just I need this amount of money at the end of this month to pay everybody. I need financials to understand how I can plan for future growth, how I can plan to evolve with new technologies. And if I don't have enough cash reserves, how to explain to investors that this is the amount of cash that's required to help me execute on this plan. I hope that helps. Thank you. The financial modules in DIFME are the perfect foundation for you to build the knowledge and skill. They provide you with videos, slide presentations, the FabLinker financial modeling app, workbooks, quizzes, and tests. But the modules will also give you the skills to explore all sources of funding, to fine-tune your business model, to maximize its self-reliance and minimize its dependence on external funding. Getting funding is not an end in itself. And the ability to do a lot with little is a primary business skill. It's certainly the skill that will yield most value to all stakeholders in your business. So register for one of our webinars, join the discussion, and help us get more people switched on to the value of simple financial knowledge, tools, and techniques. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much to John and Jack for that interesting video. John, you raised a couple of very interesting points there and were quite brutally honest about some lessons that you learned in your career. In your role with the Business Angel Network, have you seen any improvement in the financial awareness of teams, the management startup teams?
I think, to be fair, it has got better. It has matured, I would say, over the last 5 or 10 years that I've been pretty active in this space. That doesn't, I mean, it's still quite light. And I think if you, the logic I would use is that people who start up businesses aren't necessarily coming from accounting or financing background. They're typically coming from the technical side, that they are creating something which technically does not exist. And that for them is the challenge, that they want to fix the problem that's out there. Or they're coming from the commercial side, which is very much around sales, marketing, positioning, everything else, but they don't fully understand. They have an idea about the finance, but it's more about, this is the price we're going to sell it at, and this is the amount of money we're going to make, rather than the underpinning of it in terms of building up financial models. And I suppose what we always see is the top-down approach in terms of the market is this big, we just need 1%, that kind of stuff, which I'm sure you all hear. And really our preference is to do away with all of that and do a bottom-up build in terms of identifying who the customers you're going to go out to are, what the pricing model is going to be, what the price per module is going to be, is there an ability to expand once you get in there. But then there's little things that catch people out, which is like the sales cycle. So yes, you might have a purchase order, but you might not get paid for another 90 days, or you might not get paid. If you're dealing with some of the larger companies, you might not get paid for 360 days. And we've seen that coming through as well. Even though it's illegal, they always find ways to do it. So it's just things to be aware of in terms of the cash flow versus the P&L.
Okay, thank you very much. And the other question that I was going to ask you, John, was you mentioned getting money into the accounts, but when investors have had a look at a business, and quite often you find that financials for that purpose are prepared by outside advisors, once the money is in, how do the executives, do they understand their responsibility towards the investors to actually garner a return for them and be able to show how they're making best use of the funds that they have received?
Yeah, I suppose the promoters and the investors, we always try to align them so that their ambitions are aligned in terms of what the end goal is. If you think about HBAN, what HBAN is, it's a dating agency. It's the reality of what we do. We have high net worth individuals who want to invest in good quality companies on one side of that equation. And on the other side of the equation, we have really good quality companies coming through that are worth investing in. And we filter those companies down from 700 a year to 150 that get invested in. And of that 150 that we present to our network, of which between 60 and 70 in any one year will get invested in. So I've just lost my train of thought. What was the question there again?
The responsibility that the promoters have to their investors once they receive the cash and letting them see how the money is actually being deployed and used.
Yeah, so apologies. So that alignment piece is the money in generally tends to be quite easy because a lot of people want to invest. But where the misalignment comes is the divorce case of this sort of dating agency. So we bring people together. It's a marriage, but it's a marriage with a planned divorce, is what we say. And the divorce part is where you exit the company and you get your return as an investor. And what we've seen over the years is maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that was a trade sale of your company. But now we're seeing secondary markets coming in where either private equity or VCs are coming in. They're buying out the early stage investors and the promoters can stay with the company. And that's really what we like to see, is because the promoters don't always want to create a company that they want to sell. They want to grow a business. That's their baby. They want to go with it. So those promoters who respect the investors' capital at the beginning, they're aligned with the investors. And the board of directors tend to keep the promoters on track for that. And that's the I suppose the having a board there is hugely useful, not just for governance, but just to help you to keep on the straight and narrow in terms of what your responsibilities are. So sometimes people might see it as kind of, it's encumbering them at their speed. But I would say what it does is give them a huge amount of advice so they can get all of that, but it keeps them on the straight and narrow in terms of their cash spend as well.
Yeah, and I think you're identifying there that the promoters who stay with the business are the ones who have managed and carefully husbanded the funds that they have received, and they had some financial knowledge to be able to do so, which was, I would imagine, very useful. If I could, Gareth, ask you, you've had extensive experience with corporates and with micro businesses through MFI and internationally. Operating at a slightly smaller scale with the funds that are being invested here, what's your experience on the same side? Have you noticed significant differences, or is there still a noticeable gap in financial knowledge for people with whom you're investing through MFI or were investing through MFI?
Yeah, no, thanks, Damon. Yeah, no, there's a huge gap, and I was trying to think, had it improved or had it got worse? And I was comparing the microfinance book to my old banking books, and you'd say, oh my God, it's got a lot worse. But actually, I think what the reality is, the larger the business, the easier it is to mask probably the fact that the CEO knows nothing about finance, because he or she has had the ability to employ somebody to help them with their finances along the way. At the micro end, where most micros actually, probably in Ireland, have less than 5 employees, not even the less than 10 employees, taking on an accountant is probably the last thing in the CEO's head on day one. And I always know when we're in trouble when we sit down with somebody and you try to ask a simple question about the cash flow, and they say, well, I paid an accountant to do these for me, and they've no idea whatsoever of what's in there. And maybe, and John touched on this, it's the stereotypical, the person, male or female, who sets up a business tends to be more entrepreneurial, more commercial, more sales focused, has a great idea or whatever. And they're not focusing on finance. But if they can't get even the basics right, I mean, the number of businesses I've seen who don't even understand the marginal cost of their product. So they don't know if the sale point is actually fantastic or terrible. I've seen really, really successful business on day one, not understanding why, despite queues out the door, so to speak, they're actually losing money because they don't actually understand their marginal cost. The other big problem is the difference between cash, as we all know, and profit. And again, John touched on this, people not understanding their credit terms. So I think the basic things is people need to understand their margins. They need to understand how to manage stock, creditor terms, and so what are they getting themselves into, and then actually putting money aside. I mean, VAT is a huge problem for small businesses because they forget. They have to store that away for the rainy day, and it's much broader than that, future investment in the business, etc. So I can see it's improving at the moment. We encourage people who we lend to actually take mentoring or get support somewhere, and they don't have to be accountants. They just need to understand the basic fundamentals. We also try to push them down the doLearnFinance route, so I don't know how successful that is, but with them doing it. But the challenge for me is trying to encourage people to at least know the basics.
Thanks very much, Gareth. And I'm just going to move across to Trudy there, if I might. You've got a background where you were running your own business and you moved into academic working with entrepreneurs. But yet, is it fair to say that even with entrepreneurs, getting them to understand the requirement to learn finance and to know about finance is sometimes a challenge?
Absolutely, Damien. I suppose I teach entrepreneurship courses from first year through to master's students, and each one of them, when you mention financials, they straight away associate it with accounting and accountants. And the problem, I suppose, is that these students feel that they need to be accountants in order to complete and appreciate the financials of a business plan. And it's a challenge to, I suppose, highlight to them that doesn't need to be that complicated, but also that it's fundamental to the success of their business plan. I mean, the working world is changing, and these students are facing so many challenges. And obviously the aim of the entrepreneurship courses is to encourage them to become entrepreneurs, or at a minimum to invoke an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I suppose, it's really important that they understand that financial skills are one of the key dimensions of entrepreneurial skills. And, these students go about developing business plans, coming up with ideas for their business. And the last thing they seem to want to think about is the financials. But I try to highlight to them, I suppose, at the very, very beginning that, the scalability of a business, the importance of understanding the reality of costing, pricing, and profits. It's absolutely vital for a positive business performance. And I think the problem is that they do associate it with accounting. And, many of these students, while many of my students are business background students, they're not necessarily background in accounting. And many of them are engineering students, science students, as John said, a lot coming from that tech background. And they feel that it's the last thing that they want to consider. Many of them try to push it out to the end when it's really something that they need to consider from the very, very start, because they may think that they have a fantastic idea, but from a financial perspective, it's never going to work. So it's definitely a challenge. And I suppose it's a challenge for teachers like myself. I am not an accountant. I don't come from an accounting background. And when I go to teach an entrepreneurship course, I'm covering everything from, the legal structures to market research to marketing and communication strategies, right down to financials. And that's a huge amount, I suppose, for anyone who is trying to facilitate and help budding entrepreneurs to do. And it's really important, I think, for students to have that understanding and appreciation of the financials, because we do try to encourage them to follow on with these new venture ideas and, apply for programs like Student Inc. in our Entrepreneurship Incubation Center. And having an understanding of their financials is imperative to them progressing in these programs and then perhaps developing further with these programs as well.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Trudy. I'm going to move that across then to Tom Cooney, who's coming into a similar background. He's an award-winning, more recently again, academic, but also heavily involved in the entrepreneurial field himself. Do you have the similar experience to Trudy, or can you give us some more information on that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Damien, I'll talk about it from two perspectives.
Please.
See, one is run my own consultancy business and do a lot of consultancy with small firms. And I've just been continually taken aback by the extraordinarily poor level of financial literacy amongst owner managers. I take John's point earlier that it's improving, but the companies John works with are ones who are receiving some form of investment from either business angels or VCs, or so therefore there's a requirement on them to be more conscious of financial projections and financial statements. But the types of companies I work tend to have, don't have that background, and literally don't have any idea on a month-by-month basis what the basic numbers are. Coming back to what Garrett said about just getting the basics right. And when I work with these firms, it's normally in the capacity as a marketing consultant, and I'm looking to develop their marketing strategies. And the first thing I do is ask for their, for a kind of dashboard of their financial figures. And they're going, but you're here to talk about marketing. And I said, I know, right? I said, but I need to know your numbers first. They don't appreciate the value of understanding financial numbers. And number speakers have already said it, right? We don't want them to be qualified financial accountants. That's not what we're asking. But what we are asking is that you look at a set of financial figures and see the value of the data. So simple things like working with a company last year where, they didn't know where the value of a customer, they were charging a customer 50 grand a year, right? But they didn't know whether they were making a profit or loss off that customer, right? And they didn't know where the money was coming from, right? Like, so which part of our niche markets are making us most money? And then simple things like, debtors lists, not keeping track of that. And like, we're talking basics here now, right? But what I've discovered is that, this isn't just an Irish problem. This is bigger than this. Because when I'm at international conferences, I talk to people about the challenges for SME owner managers around financial literacy. It's the same in other countries. And that's why I think this particular project is of such value. And again, as Trudy was saying, when it comes to students, they just glaze over. You talk, let's develop financial projections, and they go, oh my God, I need to balance a set of accounts here. And I think part of that problem starts in secondary school. I got my own eldest guy who's doing the junior cert currently. And I look at his business book, and they're talking about double entry bookkeeping, right? And he's looking at me going, explain this to me, Dad. And we're kind of going, do we need that here, right? Do we need, so like, what you're trying to do with the students, as Trudy has already said, is get them to break past that initial barrier of, oh my God, it's finances, I'm about to switch off, to engaging with them in some way, and to getting them to appreciate the value of financials, and then getting them involved in developing their own set of financial projections and saying, hey, actually, this isn't so bad. And when you got tools like doLearnFinance, which does all of the hard work for them and allows them simply to input the data and focus on, the value of the data that's been driven, that they've generated, okay, and understanding, what that does to their business, gets them involved so much more effectively, in terms of learning and in terms of appreciating the value of financial literacy. But as I say, it's a big issue, and it's not just Ireland's.
No, it certainly isn't. And but I think you've hit the nail on the head, and we've certainly seen it in the last number of years that when students start to see that figures aren't just numbers on a page, that they live and breathe, and you can make them move if you decide you're going to sell extra amounts or smaller amounts, and to be able to see that through doLearnFinance and through the DIFME project and the finance modules, it does make a difference. It does suddenly bring it to life for them and let people understand that there is something. Students, micro-entrepreneurs at various different levels that, oh, well, I can see how this actually relates to my business now. Jack, would you have
sorry, Damien, sorry, just one final point, and I'll make it brief. I was doing a case study not so long ago in a marketing class, and there was financials going with the case study. And as soon as I said, okay, so talk to me about the financials, right? And one student said, well, we're marketing students. We don't need to know finance, right? And you're kind of going, oh my God, right? And this is the point that John talked about earlier as well, right? So how do we break past that? You know, how do we get people to engage in, you know, financial literacy and understand that it doesn't matter where your job lies, understanding finance is of value to all concerned.
Thanks, Tom. And Jack, on that point, you have considerable experience in that area and bringing it to life.
I just had to, Tom made it brilliantly for me, and thanks to all the other speakers. Very interesting stuff. I've been at this for, God, what am I now? I must be about 50. I've been at this about 10 years, banging my head trying to get startups to take financial seriously. And that question did dog me, because the antipathy that startup businesses, the engineers, the marketeers, the physicists have towards finance, you begin to say, maybe they're right. You know, maybe they don't need to know finance. But one of the enjoyable things, Marika, about working on DIFME in this particular project, and some of the stuff, Garrett, that you sent us, you know, these seminars with other people's views from different countries, it reinforces that they really do. That it's not a skill like marketing or engineering. It's actually a generic core skill for anybody in business. And if you look at, if I was starting a business in the morning, there's kind of two options really in terms of the finances. I can get someone like John or a VC who has the expertise, or an accountant, Damien, if I were rich enough to do it. And they'll do the financials for me. But you saw Garrett as a banker's attitude to that kind of third-hand or second-hand thing. That's not what they want. They want to talk to me about my understanding of finance. So even if I go that route, my other option is, of course, and this is becoming more so, and I'd be very interested in John's views and Garrett's views and the other panelists. The capital required to start a business is going down. It's getting less because many of the online businesses are relatively easy, low capital businesses to start. So I may not be lucky enough to get a VC or an investor. 90% of businesses are going to have to bootstrap, i.e. I'm going to have to figure out the old 3 Fs and start to do it myself. So I'm going to have to know a little bit and take responsibility for my financial projections. And even if I go with a VC or an investor, should I really be comfortable about surrendering all the knowledge over to that side? I mean, that's not adult behavior. I should know enough about my own financials to discuss adult to adult with a John or a VC or a Garrett. That I shouldn't just say, well, that's your topic, or talk to my accountant. I should be able to do that. And as you said, we've worked hard, and DIFME is, I think, will make a difference as well, to make it easy for people to do their finances, to understand them and to actually project them. And I'll just leave it with the point that many of my clients are accountants, and they're frustrated trying to explain P&Ls, balance sheets, cash flows, point made earlier, difference between profit and cash, to people who just don't take the trouble. So in my opinion, and I leave it with this, anything that we can do that makes people take their finances a little bit more seriously. Stop looking at them as something either artificial or terribly difficult, and something that's really locked in to the way they do business. Everything they do, whether they look at it or not, has financial implications. There's a little P&L and a cash flow being written every management decision you make. So that's my threepenny bit, Damon.
Thanks very much, Jack. And you know, that's something that I think each of the people involved in working with entrepreneurs in the last couple of years have been saying to us that there is more of an understanding coming through bootstrapping businesses, through startups, that everything that they're doing is affecting money. And if you can actually monitor it, if you can use something like doLearnFinance or FabLinker and watch your figures as they're changing daily and weekly, it's very easy to do it. You can actually see that, you know, there are days when you don't make any sales. That doesn't mean there isn't any money going out, and you need to be keeping to monitor those as well. Which actually brings me back to Gareth. There's been some very interesting seminars on recently. I think it was microfinance in Europe and internationally. There seems to be some trends emerging in funding of micro businesses that are changing. Would you have anything you could share with us on that?
Well, most of the funding or the changes of actually how the microfinancers are actually going to be funded, and then there's a fair bit of movement in that space. But there is a growing trend across Europe that the size bands that will be allowed lend to will get higher, because there's European legislation that links microfinancing to a 25k cap, which in Western Europe is actually too low. Eastern Europe, it's much higher. But the trend is, and because of COVID, there's been a lot of further supports thrown out there to actually enhance what we can actually do to support people with higher risk models, with deferments, etc.
Is there more funding via investment rather than via loans? That's
okay.
Yeah.
Jack, yeah.
One of the we were watching a series of seminars that you, funnily enough, pointed me to in the microfinance, and the subject of these, among many others, the ones that we were interested in, was actually that they are suggesting this European project was only suggesting to microfinance institutes that they should consider a sort of hybrid between loans and equity, and talking to people like John to try and build funds and expand. I mean, is that what you're referring to, Damien?
It is an open debate. The challenge is, do microfinancers want to become part of a VC type marketplace? Because you're dealing with a very different type of clients to where John would be going or the VCs would be going to. And part of the suggestion is actually by building a quasi fund, if you're spreading your risk across a wide spread of micro enterprises. There's a lot of people who think it might work with a lot of people saying, well, actually, do you really want stakes in what are, you get down to the nuts and bolts of what a micro enterprise is. A lot of them are actually not very exciting businesses. They're your corner street shop, they're your butcher, your baker, and all very hugely important organizations to help local communities. But really, they don't fit into the in my mind anyway, the VC space.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And we were wondering about that and how it would work, again, with the finances and reporting and the requirements that would come in for a VC investment. So whereas you needed to know something about your finances and about your own business, it would take it to a completely different level. So it's interesting to hear that it's a topic for debate. We were picking up on it and wondering, is this coming? And didn't see how it would necessarily benefit the businesses, particularly from a finance perspective.
I think, if I can just make an observation, which is Gareth, that I think you're correct. I mean, most of micro businesses are lifestyle businesses, or what we would term lifestyle, which is essentially owned by people who have a service they want to provide. They're not necessarily investment opportunities, because you're not going to get a return because the businesses will never be sold. The owners don't want to sell them, and there's no return back out of it. So debt might actually be a better instrument than an equity investment. And the investors, from the investor side, they want to see something with a 10x return, which probably I would say is not going to happen out of most of them. So I think that there might be a challenge there. That's just an observation.
Yeah,
Actually,
no,
no,
that's
John,
actually
John-
because we regularly get contacted by investment funds around the world trying to on lend to us, and then they, and you have a few quick conversations, and they realize what you're dealing with, and they're out the door very quickly.
And actually, John did the point, and Gareth, the speaker who was advocating this proposal to the MFIs actually used the term boring businesses, referring to the candlestick maker and so on, and making exactly that point. But he was trying to suggest that some people in microfinance might also be bored, and that there might be some halfway ground, and then bring in some expertise from experienced investors, while acknowledging it's a completely different game. And
the definition is what it confuses people. I mean, you could be a 5-people, multi-million pound IT company, and you're ripe for VC, but you can also be a 9-person micro enterprise that will never go anywhere. So it's the type of business that actually drives the investment.
And exactly, and I think in fairness to the guy, that's what the proposer was saying, was that look, within your portfolio, there may be businesses who want to grow while accepting that 80% they want to just stay as lifestyle business.
Okay, thank you very much, Jack and Gareth. Much appreciated, and your input, and John also. Okay, we're just coming to the end, and we'll be handing back to Marika to wrap up in a second. I think we're all acknowledging that there are problems in getting people to focus on the financials within their businesses as micro entrepreneurs, and larger entities has been mentioned also. But undoubtedly, the DIFME project has been extremely useful in identifying the different areas in finance that could be of benefit for micro entrepreneurs. It is a European-wide problem, and one that we hope we can address over the next number of years. We have to, if we're going to have a higher level of success in our startups and in bootstrapping, which is becoming more and more prevalent for the smaller businesses that a lot of us would deal with. So Marika, if I could just hand over to you to close out for the last minute or 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Damien. This has been a very interesting event. I mean, a lot to learn from the people who are hands-on in the business, who are out there and who have the experience in relating to what other entities are going through. DIFME is now coming to its closure in December, but we hope it's ongoing. As I mentioned earlier, we have the piloting on, so it's the time to bring in entrepreneurs on board and to try and test it, because there's always something we can do better. These events, thematic events, we have a range of, and they are uploaded in our SME Hub. In the SME Hub, we are specifically going on to country information. That's information which is specific to each country, which we are, all the partner countries are EU countries, but differs so much. As I mentioned earlier, the piloting is open to all, and we would greatly appreciate feedback if all of you could promote it, have a look into it, and tell us what we can improve as well.
Thank you very much, Marika, and thank you to all of the panelists. It's been a very interesting discussion, and thank you all for your time. Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the invite.